Can a perfect life collapse without a single scandal? For decades, George Clooney seemed untouchable, Hollywood's true gentleman, the man who had it all: fame, respect, love, and the life most people only dream of. But what happens when the picture of perfection starts to quietly fall apart, not through betrayal or headlines, but through time, distance, and the silence in between? Behind the red carpets and flawless smiles, there was a story few ever saw, one of reflection, regret, and the kind of honesty that left fans stunned. Because when Clooney finally spoke, what he revealed wasn't gossip. It was truth, raw, human, and heartbreakingly real. Before we uncover the full story, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon, because today, we are diving into the untold reality behind one of Hollywood's most admired love stories. From eternal bachelor to believer in love. For most of his career, George Clooney was Hollywood's most famous bachelor, a man who seemed to have outsmarted both heartbreak and commitment. After his brief and painful marriage to actress Talia Balsam ended in the early 1990s, he made a quiet promise to himself: never again. In interviews, he turned that decision into a running joke. "I'm just not very good at marriage," he'd say with a grin, and the world bought it. It became part of his legend, the charming, self-aware rebel who had everything except a wedding ring. While friends settled down and started families, Clooney poured his energy into his craft. Movie sets became his home, co-stars his companions, and political causes his second career. He was rarely seen without a smile, often surrounded by friends or fans. Yet when the lights dimmed and the laughter faded, even George admitted there were moments when the silence hit different. Fame could pack a schedule, but it could never fill the quiet corners of a house built for two. Still, he carried that solitude with grace, never bitter, never desperate, just seemingly content to live life on his own terms. The image of independence suited him perfectly. To the public, he was untouchable, the man who needed no one. But destiny has a way of flipping the script on even the most determined stories. And then came a summer that no one saw coming, the year 2013, at his villa on Lake Como, when someone walked into his life who wasn't dazzled by his fame, his films, or his fortune, and everything began to change. Meeting Amal, the shift no one expected. It began quietly, the kind of meeting that changes everything but feels ordinary at first. It was the summer of 2013 at George Clooney's villa on Lake Como, a place where laughter and late-night talks often filled the air. A mutual friend arrived with a guest, a woman who would alter the course of his carefully guarded life, Amal Alamuddin, an Oxford-educated human rights lawyer whose world revolved around justice, not fame. Unlike the countless faces George had met in Hollywood, Amal wasn't starstruck. She was poised, brilliant, and effortlessly confident, and when they spoke, she met his charm with wit and intellect. It wasn't flirtation, it was connection. Clooney later admitted that when she walked into the room, everything was different on every level. That difference caught him off guard. For the first time in decades, he wasn't the one running the conversation. What began as casual correspondence turned into long nights of laughter and quiet dinners away from cameras. Amal didn't chase his world, she challenged it. Her work with the United Nations, her speeches before the International Criminal Court, and her relentless pursuit of justice grounded him in a reality far from Hollywood glamour. Then came April 2014, a simple evening in George's kitchen that would rewrite his story. He had hidden a diamond ring inside a drawer and waited nervously as Amal talked about her day. Minutes passed, and she never noticed. Finally, half laughing, half desperate, he said, "I'm 52 years old and my knee's going to give out soon." Amal said yes, and the world's most confirmed bachelor became a believer in forever. That September, Venice turned into a scene straight out of a movie, gondolas gliding under golden light, celebrities celebrating by candlelight. It wasn't just a wedding, it was a declaration that even the man, who claimed he'd never love again, had found someone worth breaking every promise for. To the world, it looked like perfection, and for a time, it truly was. Golden years, the power couple the world envied. For a few golden years, George and Amal Clooney seemed to embody everything modern love could be: elegance, purpose, and devotion woven together. When their twins, Ella and Alexander, were born in 2017, George called it the greatest moment of my life. Parenthood softened him, grounding the movie star in something deeper than fame. Amal, balancing motherhood with her demanding legal career, continued to fight for human rights on the world stage, while George directed socially conscious films and supported humanitarian causes. Together, they became more than celebrities, they became symbols. The Clooney Foundation for Justice worked to defend journalists, activists, and vulnerable communities worldwide. They stood at the intersection of glamour and morality, proof, it seemed, that love could be both beautiful and meaningful. Every red carpet appearance turned into a portrait of unity, every interview into an insight on shared respect. Their homes, from Lake Como to their Provence estate, were often described as havens of peace, where laughter from their children echoed through olive groves and candlelit dinners replaced Hollywood chaos. Friends called them inseparable, the couple who somehow made fame look effortless. But behind that seamless partnership, life was becoming increasingly complex. Amal's work took her across continents, from London to The Hague, while George spent long nights on set, chasing creative visions that demanded his full attention. The same drive that had once inspired them now began to pull them in different directions. From the outside, everything still gleamed, the elegance, the smiles, the perfect image. But even perfection has its price. Because when two brilliant worlds orbit too far apart for too long, something, no matter how golden, begins to strain under its own shine. Even gold, under enough pressure, can crack. The cracks begin: distance and double lives. By 2025, the perfect rhythm of George and Amal Clooney's marriage began to slow. Amal had accepted a prestigious teaching position at the University of Oxford, juggling lectures and international human rights cases like a total boss. George, meanwhile, was deep in prep mode for his long-awaited Broadway debut in Good Night and Good Luck. For the first time in their marriage, they weren't just emotionally apart, they were literally living on different continents. They told friends it was temporary, just work, no big deal. But the days apart stretched into months, and those long calls started feeling more like obligations than comfort. Amal's structured, laser-focused academic life clashed hard with George's creative, unpredictable routine. The same independence that once pulled them together was now low-key pushing them apart. When asked about their relationship, George told People magazine that he and Amal have never had an argument, a line that wowed the public, but also sparked some quiet side-eyes about emotional communication. Experts later noted that too much harmony can sometimes hide what words never resolve. The smiles and red carpets kept rolling, but under all that elegance was straight-up exhaustion, two people trying to stay connected while the world kept dragging them in opposite directions. Quick pause: if you're enjoying the story so far, hit subscribe and stay with us for the next twist. The Relapse, a night that changed everything. Sometimes a story doesn't fall apart with betrayal or shouting, it unravels over one quiet mistake. For George Clooney, that moment hit on a glittering June night in 2025 at the Tony Awards in New York. It was meant to be a celebration, a rare night where he and Amal showed up together, smiling, confident, looking unbreakable. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, and the Clooneys once again served full Hollywood perfection. But as the night went on, celebration slowly blurred into something else, a quick escape from the pressure, the distance, and the silence creeping into their marriage. George, who had proudly stayed sober for years, later admitted in Esquire that he decided to catch up on lost time in one evening. He laughed about it publicly, brushing it off like it was no big deal, a harmless slip. But Amal didn't see it that way. For her, it wasn't about the drink, it was about what it symbolized. It brought back the image of the younger George she had never met firsthand, but had heard plenty about, the guy who lived recklessly, partied hard, and shrugged off responsibility. She had fallen for the man who had outgrown that version of himself, the father, the partner, the man of control and principle. Seeing him slip, even just for one night, felt like watching the foundation they built start to shake. Friends close to the couple later shared that Amal was deeply upset, not from anger, but from fear that old patterns might creep back in. She told him she couldn't overlook it, one insider said, not because she didn't love him, but because she needed to trust he wouldn't go back. The days after were tense and painfully quiet. George pulled back, embarrassed and full of regret, while Amal turned inward, her disappointment loud in its silence. What was supposed to be their safe haven, their home in Provence, suddenly felt heavy. The applause from the Tony Awards had faded, but for George, that night's echo wouldn't quit. In private, he realized it wasn't fame or pressure tearing at him, it was something way more human, more raw. The slow understanding that even love can't always save us from ourselves. Behind closed doors, silence instead of fights. After that rough summer, George and Amal retreated to their estate in Provence, acres of vineyards, olive trees, and endless sky. It was meant to be a place to heal, a break from tabloid noise and non-stop schedules. But inside those stone walls, peace slowly turned into distance. Amal spent her mornings buried in lectures and international legal cases, laptop open from sunrise to sunset. George rehearsed alone, pacing the garden paths where laughter once lived. They crossed paths at dinner, spoke kindly, but something had shifted, their conversations felt like polite performances instead of real, shared confessions. To the outside world, the Clooneys still looked flawless, showing up hand in hand, trading smiles under flashing cameras. But friends who visited them in Provence sensed a quiet tension beneath the calm. Amal, always the perfectionist, valued order and discipline. George, who built his life on creativity and spontaneity, started feeling out of sync. She doesn't see unpredictability as charm anymore, one acquaintance said. She sees it as risk. And that subtle, almost invisible difference began driving a wedge between them. There were no explosive arguments, no shouting matches. Just long silences that said everything words couldn't. Amal's days were packed with structure and purpose, George's moved slower, filled with reflection and a creeping sense of displacement. He loved her, still, deeply, but felt like a guest in his own marriage, unsure whether to speak up or just stay quiet. Relationship experts often say the scariest sound in a marriage isn't yelling, it's silence. That silence had moved in, filling every empty room. And while the world watched two icons gracefully balance love and ambition, behind closed doors they were just two people trying to remember what closeness even felt like, before ambition, distance, and time did their quiet damage. Trial separation and the media storm. By early 2025, the rumors were impossible to ignore. Amal was living in Oxford full-time, surrounded by students and non-stop casework, while George stayed in New York, grinding toward his Broadway dream. Their worlds, once tightly intertwined, were now drifting into separate orbits. Insiders didn't call it conflict. They called it a quiet separation, born from overwork, distance, and a whole lot of unspoken tension. Still, they stayed in touch, keeping up those sweet bedtime calls with their twins and sending updates back and forth across time zones. But as the months rolled on, the distance between them started to feel heavier, like, really heavy. When the tabloids picked up on it, the headlines went wild, shouting about a trial separation and a marriage on the edge. Both George and Amal kept quiet, and that silence. Yeah, it just made the rumors louder. Reports painted their separation as mutual and respectful, two grown adults choosing space to reflect instead of clashing head-on. Clooney, being Clooney, wouldn't confirm or deny a thing, just kept grinding at work like always. And through all of it, their restraint said more than any statement could. This wasn't bitterness. It was two people low-key trying to figure out life's second act under the loudest spotlight on earth. Amal's public words, grace with a hint of distance. When Glamour magazine dropped Amal Clooney's fall 2025 interview, people expected style advice and career talk. What they didn't expect: that quiet ache tucked between her sentences. Speaking about her marriage, she said softly, "I have a partner in life who is so supportive of what I do. When I became a mom, he was the first to say, 'You've got this speech at the Security Council. I'll take care of the kids.'" It sounded like appreciation, and it was, but underneath, there was something calmer, more reflective than celebratory. For the first time in months, Amal had spoken publicly about George. Her words were kind, but they carried the warmth of memory more than the certainty of the present. People noticed the past tense. He was the first to say, like she was flipping through an old chapter instead of living in it. George reportedly read the interview while in Provence. Friends said it hit him deep. He respected her strength, her brilliance, her compassion, but those same qualities reminded him how far apart they'd drifted. Fame had handed them everything, sure, but it had also taken the one thing money can't buy back: simplicity. In private chats, George admitted to close friends that he missed their life before the world barged in, before every word and every photo turned into a headline. "I never wanted to be a headline about love," he confided. "I just wanted to be a husband." Amal's interview cooled the gossip for a minute, but for anyone really paying attention, it revealed more than it hid. It wasn't the voice of someone ready to walk away. It sounded like someone trying to hold onto something precious, even as it slowly slipped through her fingers. Quick reminder, don't miss more untold Hollywood moments. Tap subscribe now and keep watching. George's confession, not a denial, but a realization. When George Clooney finally addressed his marriage, it wasn't at some big press conference or glossy cover shoot. It happened in a quiet, unplanned interview that caught everyone off guard. When asked if the separation rumors were true, he paused long enough for silence to do the talking. Then he said gently, "Marriage isn't about staying the same. It's about holding on when everything around you changes, and when you change too." He didn't confirm a divorce. He didn't deny it either. Instead, he went deeper, talking about the kind of loneliness that can exist even between two people who still love each other. Sometimes, he admitted, you can sit across from the person you love and feel miles away. It wasn't anger. It was grief, the kind that shows up when love doesn't end, it just evolves into something quieter and harder to label. Fans weren't shocked because it was scandalous. They were shocked because it was real. The guy known for charm and cool composure had finally dropped the guard. Friends later said it was his way of telling the truth without hurting anyone, admitting that perfection was never the goal, just honesty. His words reminded people that even the most admired couples are human. That distance isn't always about geography. And that sometimes, love's biggest test is knowing when to let silence speak. Aftermath, acceptance and different worlds. By the end of 2025, the Clooneys' once shared world had settled into two different rhythms. Amal kept teaching law at Oxford, raising their twins in the peaceful English countryside. George spent most of his time in Provence, juggling vineyard work, directing projects, and the fading echo of Broadway applause. Friends didn't call it a breakup. They called it an understanding, two lives that still cared deeply, but had accepted that closeness doesn't always mean sameness. George, now 64, often talked about time like it was both a blessing and a thief. Forever, he once joked to a friend, is harder than I thought. He missed the chaos of family life, the kids' laughter, Amal's morning spark, but he also found calm in the quiet. Amal, steady as ever, poured herself into advocacy and motherhood, her focus sharp and unwavering. They still spoke often. They still saw each other during holidays. But the tone was different. To the world, they stayed classy, no blame, no drama. Just two people navigating the softer stages of love. Their story slowly shifted from being about loss to being about resilience, about how love can bend without completely breaking. Somewhere between distance and devotion, they found something a lot of people never do: acceptance. Because sometimes, the strongest kind of love is knowing when to let it grow into something new instead of forcing it to stay the same. The bottom line: love after fame. In the end, there wasn't a villain in the Clooney story. Just two people caught between time, change, and the quiet pool of different worlds. It wasn't about betrayal or scandal. It was about how love evolves, how even the strongest bond can be tested by ambition, distance, and the passing years. George and Amal showed that love doesn't always crash and burn. Sometimes it reshapes, softer, calmer, more honest. Their journey leaves one timeless question hanging in the air: can love really survive success? Can two people hold onto each other when the world keeps asking for more? If this story meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because next, we're diving into another untold chapter from Hollywood's most fascinating lives.